Hello guys, so let's continue our presentation of the RadCORE project. In the previous video, we briefly saw the basic difference between creating a standard UNIGUI project and creating a standard RadCORE project, and what are the initial impressions we get right after running the application. Okay, now let's start exploring more of these resources, right, that are at our disposal. Okay, well, let's go. I'm going to go back here to my window of my application, unique, pattern, so-and-so, and I'm going to start here to move my browser so-and-so. So we'll see here. Oh no. There's nothing different. It's all standard, right, the unique standard application, as well as several standard applications on the market, they don't bring any responsiveness features. I say this in relation to any other framework on the market. I can stretch myself and talk about a PHP of life. We don't have native responsiveness. Native responsiveness we achieve in DELPHI frameworks, in PHP itself, using HTML, CSS or JavaScript. So the most common, most well-known library that we have in our web universe is Bootstrap. So, what do you use a lot to achieve responsiveness in applications? People turn to a template. So you get a template on the web, an LTE admin. There are several various templates available, and you insert this template, the structure of it, and you open it along with VS Code, a Notepad++, a Sublime. You leave the DELPHI IDE open, you open another IDE for you. Edit your HTML files, and you go through that process of editing your template to suit what you're trying to create on your screen, in your form, so you can get responsiveness. Okay, let's go here to the hardcore. Okay, so the hardcore initially doesn't either. There's nothing here. It's right. So I'm not applying any responsive features here in hardcore, okay, because I just took the native components, right, from UNIGUI and that I brought here to the screen. What are we going to do then, folks? I'm going to grab here the components that we've brought, which are native. I'm going to introduce you to a second tool that comes with the RadCORE project. We've seen RC Wizard, which helps us create ready-made projects. And let's look now at RC Elements. So that's what RC Elements is all about. I'll activate it via a context menu, or I can trigger it via the Object Inspector. So, RC Elements is like a kind of a second IDE, where you'll be able to add dynamic attributes, which are the resources that RadCORE will use to interpret the layouts that we want to apply, and I can also use it to perform various types of actions, create new forms, generate. Ready-made forms based on database tables and insert components also already ready to use. So there is a range of resources that we can use with RC Elements. But come on. Initially, what am I going to do? I'm going to turn these three groups of components into responsive blocks, okay? So here we go. I'm going to select my edit, my label, and now I'm going to come over here and trigger my RC Elements, and I'm now going to apply an action called BlockFind. So BlockFind brings up here my initial structure. I'm going to keep that default, and I'm going to give here an OK. So look what happened. He created a responsive block and threw my label, my edit into it, and already aligned these components to be in such a layout pattern that we know a lot in the web standard, which is mobile first. What do I mean by that? It's just that the size, the dimension of my edit, it stayed. You see that the change in his height had a very significant change. But why is that? It is so that this application can be visibly ideal for both desktop and mobile. Exactly. That's what RadCORE proposes to us. It's just that we have an application with a single code and that it's ready for mobile. Actually, I say mobile, but for any device. So let's do then the same thing with the other component groups. I'm going to come over here in the block file. It generated me here the structure. I'm going to come over here again for my third block file, and it set me up my structure beauty. So, guys, it's an important thing. From the moment you start working with responsive tiles, you no longer have to worry about aligning components at design time. This is already another benefit. I'm going to leave here the components all away from each other, misaligned, so that you also understand the productivity gain that you will have when developing applications with RadCORE. So responsiveness will be in charge of aligning these components, little by little. With the learning that you will apply, you will build complex screens following examples that radio code itself already offers in its package, complex screens of situations that we have in our daily lives. Who develops with DELPHI, and that it is very complicated for you to reproduce this working with HTML. So let's see the final result of this. I'm going to give it my build here. I'm going to do my compilation and I'm going to refresh it. So hey, look now what's different. Okay guys, so we have now our 3 blocks with a completely new layout, right? Because we now we've expanded here the dimensions of the component. They're the same dimension and one is aligned to the other. Why? Because RadCORE by default has created a responsive block system, and each block has placed itself in the default layout of our virtual column system. Oops, a novelty. What is this virtual speaker system? So folks, it's what Bootstrap calls the grid system. The Bootstrap grid system, by default, works with 12 columns. So you're going to grab here, look at this snippet of a few lines of code, of HTML tags, where it creates 3 columns. So by default, Bootstrap has a different pattern than RadCORE. RadCORE doesn't use Bootstrap. RadCORE just uses the idea of Bootstrap pattern. It's created here, 1 div, 2 divs, 1 more div to create this block, 1 more div sequence to create this block, 1 more div sequence to create this block. Okay, so by default here, Bootstrap has 3 columns. Okay, and then it's 3 columns. It created 3 columns here, but by default, it has already filled in the 12 basic columns of its grid system. That is, it created these 3 blocks. Here, each one with 4 columns, he created 3 blocks, each with 4 columns, and then he put it together. In these 3, it's 4 times 3. It closed here, 12 columns, and then it has there, right, its responsiveness, in these 3 blocks here of columns, the RadCORE as. It's just that he's also going to work with the 12 columns. But I told him here in the creation of our RC elements when applying the block file, I told him to keep 3 columns. We'll see this in detail. The documentation that comes with RadCORE explains. So I told him that initially I want to work with 3. So all 3 of these blocks here each received this sentence here, which is the call sentence, the dynamic calls attribute. So if I have 3 blocks in here, I'm missing 3 more to close the 12, and that's why in RadCORE you see this space here. So it occupied 3, 6, 9 columns. because I ordered it to create the blocks with 3 columns each. But right off the bat, folks, we're already going to look at our responsive process. When I get to my mobile, the blocks each occupy 12 columns and will fall down one after the other. This right here is the default responsiveness. Why did they get 12 columns when I arrived in mobile mode? Because there is the instruction in here, the XS and the SM, which are equivalent to the small screen device. I said that when the application is on a small screen, the block occupies 12 columns, so as this one will get 12, this one will get 12, and this one will get 12. The blocks are falling one below the other, okay? So, a very brief way of speaking. And as the browser adjusts, the tiles automatically adjust on your screen. Beauty? So guys, this is the initial parameter of knowledge of using responsive blocks. In the next video, we'll continue to understand this usage process and the benefits of the RadCORE project. See you soon.